Okay, let me do one tiny last technical thing. And then, okay, and then we can officially begin with this event. Welcome, everyone. I think that's probably the majority of you know me, I feel like. I'm still gonna introduce myself just in case some of you guys might not know me. So just so you know, my name is Solveig Barrios. I'm the co-founder of the Mayan Wisdom Project. I'm also the daughter of Carlos Barrios, who was a renowned Mayan elder. And it is such a pleasure to be here with you guys today. I have so many exciting things okay, that was weird. My camera did something funny, but I have some really important things that I want to share with you guys today. Okay, let me turn. That will fix it because I don't know why it's glitching. All right, there you go. Thank you. So I want to share with you guys something very important because I've been talking to the spiritual leaders, and now that we entered a new cycle during the equinox, they shared with me a lot of important information, and I just thought I'm so desperate to share it with all of you guys. So I decided to create this event so that we can talk about it. But of course, I'm not going to go straight into that. I'm, of course, going to give you some interesting Mayan information about the meaning of the equinox and how to transition into this new cycle of the year of the equinox. So I'm very excited for that. If you guys brought a cup of cacao or anything, feel free to sip on it throughout the session. I also am still stirring right now, mixing mine up. And if you brought an incense or something, feel free. This is just a workshop. We're not going to be doing any spiritual practices, but of course it does not hurt at all to have like a little candle, a little incense, or a little cacao with you in this time. So let me begin by explaining a little bit the meaning of this transition that we just went through into the cycle of the equinox. So for the Mayans, and hopefully some of you guys, I feel like already know just how profound the keeping of time that the Mayans did was, and the counting of the cycles of time was. And through observation, they were able to determine a lot of different things, including the effect that we have through different astronomical events, through different changes in cycles. For the Mayans, equinoxes and solstices are always super significant. As a matter of fact, if you would be here in Guatemala or in Mexico or in Belize or in one of the beautiful countries here in Mesoamerica, you would be able to see how during equinoxes and solstices, some of the most sacred places of the Maya tradition get full of people, get full of Maya spiritual leaders who are practicing kotzich, which I'm going to write that word down, or Mayan ceremonies to celebrate the special occasion of transition and cycles. In the Maya tradition, everything is considered to be cyclical, and we're always transitioning from cycle to cycle to cycle. The Mayans have everything from macro cycles to micro cycles. And every day we change from microcycle to microcycle. There are cycles that are 13 days, cycles of 20 days. By the way, today, Happy Vats, we're starting a new 20-day cycle. So basically, is all of these changes and cycles are very important. Solstices and equinoxes all have their own meaning. Solstices have a meaning and equinoxes have a different meaning. Today, we're going to talk about the meaning specifically of the spring equinox, which, in case you didn't know, just happened a couple of days ago. So we're in the very first few days of that new cycle. Okay. The spring equinox is very sacred and important. First and foremost, the Mayans believe that during this day is when we can connect the better with the energy of the Cucumats, which is the feathered serpent. To simplify, because if you guys know me and you've heard me talk about the Cucumats before, you know it usually takes me 1 hour to explain what that means, but we can't spend 1 hour in this event talking about that, or otherwise it's going to be too long of an event. So to summarize, this very sacred energy or concept means to be able to create a connection between the cosmic and the telluric energies, for us to find the balance in the world. The Mayans believe that there's the upper world, the world, and the underworld, and that we as human beings always have to find the center, to stay between the upper world and the underworld. So it's a good time. That day was a good day to connect with the cosmic and with the telluric. But on that note of the upper world and the underworld, well, that's what I want to talk to you guys about. And I think this is a great opening to explain a little bit about like the balance between the upper world and the underworld. So the spring equinox is the time where the day and the night are, basically balancing themselves out. Is basically the time for us to stand in the center between the light and the darkness. And that doesn't refer just to the day of the spring equinox. It refers for the whole cycle of the spring until we have the next solstice, the summer solstice. So basically, this is our mission for the next few months, to stay in balance and to look inside at the light and the darkness inside of us. What do I mean by that? The Mayans have this beautiful concept of the upper world and the underworld. They believe that there is duality in all of existence. There's light and darkness, there's day and then there is night, there is sun and then there is moon, there is good and then there is bad, black and white, all of this, like feminine, masculine. Like the Mayans believe that there's all of this duality in the world and in existence. And they believe that that duality is super normal. It's a part of existence. It's actually very sacred because it's an important part of existence. Is the example I always like to give is we recognize the value that the sunlight brings, that the day brings. And in the same way we recognize the value that the night brings, that the moonlight brings. We don't go out at night and scream at the moon like, we hate you because now there's no light anymore. Obviously, we don't do that. So something I was speaking about recently during the 20-day cacao challenge, and I see a bunch of people from the challenge here, so it's nice to see you guys again, by the way. Something that I was talking about recently is one time I was talking to an arquij. I'm going to write that word down too, for those of you who don't know it. So one time I was talking to an arquij. Arquij means Mayan spiritual leader. And the arquij told me that basically duality is an important part of life. He explained how everything I just explained right now, that the sun is equally important, that the moon, that the night is equally important, and the day, that the light is equally important than the darkness, that basically all of those cycles of nature are natural and there's nothing wrong with them. As a matter of fact, those are the cycles that provide life. But he told me there's also something that we don't recognize inside of us, is that we too are a reflection of nature. So of course, we also have our own duality inside of us as well. We have light inside of us and we have darkness inside of us. And in the Maya tradition, in the Maya geocosmovision, a big part of the practices are practices of balancing our duality, finding the center between our light and our darkness. And he explained me, it's a long story, but he had been talking at the time to a lot of people and even helping a few people who were not from here, from Guatemala, but they were from different countries, the countries in Europe, or people from the United States or Canada or something. And it was his first time having this experience of like basically talking to foreigners and listening to their problems and everything. And he told me the funniest thing, I told this story during the challenge, which was that, Solveig, I have figured something out. And I was like, okay, what did you figure out? And he told me, I know what the problem is with Western people. I know what's wrong with them. And I was like, okay, what's wrong with them? Tell me. And he told me, I've discovered it. They have their duality backwards, he told me. And I was like, what do you mean they have their duality backwards? And he said, look, the thing about duality is that there is enough space for the light and the darkness inside of you, he was explaining. He said, if you don't believe me, go outside at night and look up at the sky and answer me this question. Why is the only reason, what's the only reason you can see the light of the stars, he told me, is because of their dark background, reason we're all able to appreciate the beauty and the light that the stars have when they're shining, he said, is because there's a very deep, dark background behind them. And he said in the Mayan world, we're realistic. And guys, I'm telling you, this is the thing I appreciate the most perhaps about the Maya geocosmovision and the Maya tradition, this millenary ancient tradition, is just how authentic and but also how realistic it is. The Mayans talk about these beautiful things like spiritual transcendence and all of this light and stuff like that. But they also acknowledge Xibalbá. They acknowledge that we all have some Xibalbá inside of us. Xibalbá is the darkness, you know? So they acknowledge that we will fight with others. We will get triggered. Sometimes we will do bad things. Others will do bad things to us. They acknowledge that sometimes we're going to have trauma in our lives, and they have all of these practices on how to deal with it. They're not pretending like everything is just light. They are acknowledging that we're in the center between light and darkness. And so basically he was explaining me what we've discovered in the Mayan world is that the darkness is something that can truly support the light, you know? This is beautiful. As part, we're in the trecena of Can right now, and Can is the one energy that actually teaches us that going through dark or difficult things is what builds our character and is what teaches us to appreciate the light even more, and is what makes us able to become like stronger and smarter and better at becoming part of the light. And so he says, in the Maya tradition, we believe that the light and the darkness can support each other, kind of like the dark background and the starry night, where the light of the stars is able to shine even brighter thanks to the dark background it has. But he told me in the Western world, it seems like people put their duality right here next to each other, the light and the dark, and they have their light fight their darkness and their darkness fight their light, and they put their two parts of them to fight each other. He said, what people don't understand is that those two parts should be in collaboration with each other and should be able to nurture each other. The darkness, and I had this big, beautiful epiphanous moment yesterday as I was talking about this with my husband, actually. I was telling him, oh my God, I've been through so many negative things in my life. And, you know, we had like a little bit of a negative situation recently. And so like sometimes there's Xibalbá around you. You know what I mean? Xibalbá, by the way, let me spell that word, is the Mayan underworld, Xibalbá. And I was telling him, I'm so happy that I recently guided the 20-day cacao challenge, because I've been speaking so much about this, but it's different to consciously understand it than to experience it. And last night we were walking around and I had this beautiful experience where I was explaining my husband, like, I have this super deep feeling inside of me right now that I'm so happy, because even though there is darkness inside of all of us, and there's that part of me that has darkness, but there's also a big part of me that has light. I told him, in this moment right now, I feel so beautiful because I feel like my light is not in a rush to get rid of the darkness, or in this big rush to try to ignore the darkness, push it down, go away or whatever, but my light is able to hug my darkness to help it heal, and my darkness is able to push me up so that I can see my light. You know, it's like darkness can even almost remind you to see the light, you know, is what I was telling people the other day in the challenge when we talk about the energy of Xibalbá, which is the energy of the darkness. There's all these characters in the Maya oral tradition, like these ancient stories of these characters that went into the darkness to defeat the trials of the darkness. And they're the ones that represent the light, those characters. So it's almost ironic that the characters that represent the light, their whole story is the story of being in the darkness. But the Popol Vuh teaches us that the reason they were put in there, you know, was because when you're in the light, it's harder to see your light. And because those people were failing to see their own light, they had to be put in the darkness so that they learn how to turn on their light. And that was the way they were able to come out of the darkness. So that's the lessons of this equinox, believe it or not, is to find the balance in our own duality, is to find how to stand in the center between our dark and our light, to be able to accept and see without judgment both of them, and to even have them not fight each other, but almost like collaborate with each other to nurture each other, to have the light hug your dark and the dark remind you what you have to push stronger to be in the light, you know? And so that's basically the lessons of this equinox. Okay. But the reason I made this call was not because I wanted to tell you that. I mean, I did want to tell you that. I'm always speaking about this, as you guys know. So I hope that's useful information for you guys. But you know how if you've been in the Mayan Wisdom Project for a long time, you know how sometimes the spiritual leaders give us like these predictions for what's going to be happening during different cycles, you know? And so like for the Maya New Year, they're always like, this is what's going to happen this year. It's always really freaky because it always happens specifically as they say. So it's always like, whoa, how did they know? But basically, every year they give us like this predictions of like what's going to happen this year in the world, politically, with people personally, etc. And I wanted to create this call because this time I'm starting to actually get a little bit more worried. And I just wanted to, you know, I just came off the phone with Tata Jerico right now before this call. And I was just telling him, you know what, I'm going to go on a call and I'm going to tell everybody about this because basically Jerico was explaining to me like Solveig right now, because we know we're going to go see him very soon where he lives and we're going to go record some videos with him and stuff like that as we do. And he was telling me, I think right now this is more important than ever because we need to start creating a lot more awareness about what's happening in the world and also what indigenous people know, because it's going to be helpful for everything that's happening in the world right now. And so basically, in Guatemala, okay, I'll just share with you some stuff. So in Guatemala right now, for example, we're having some very big issues with the climate and the changes like due to the climate change, you know? I'm going to repeat this story because I know people in the challenge already heard it, but there's also people who did not participate in the challenge. So sorry, guys, that you have to repeat it twice, but it's important. So during the challenge, we were talking about the problems with agriculture a lot. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, we just had a 20-day event called the challenge, the 20-day cacao challenge. So just in case you don't know what I'm talking about, it just finished a couple of days ago. So a lot of the participants are here, and that's why I'm talking to them a little bit. But basically, we were talking during the 20-day cacao challenge a lot about the struggles with agriculture and the horrible agricultural practices of the world in the modern day times. We were talking about how all of the pesticides that we're using in our food are not only destroying our health, but they're also destroying the mycelium under the soil, which is the underground network of mushrooms that honestly is kind of responsible for the symbiosis of the earth. So if we keep destroying it, we're going to die. I'm just letting you know, like if we actually succeed at destroying it. We were also talking about like the GMO Monsanto, well now Bayer, but Monsanto, but we were talking about like the seeds, you know, like all of the genetically modified seeds. And we were speaking about like the damage that they do because it's all monocultures. After you start planting those seeds, you can no longer plant native seeds anymore because your soil changes so much. Native seeds won't grow anymore. So now you're forced to keep buying from these companies that these are not healthy, by the way. Like the nutritional values that you see if you Google the nutritional value of corn or the nutritional value of different foods, that refers to the actual nutritional value of real food, like native food, but it doesn't refer to all this GMO food. So on average, this new food is like non-organic GMO food is 50 times less nutritious than actual like real food, you know? And so basically we were just talking about all of the damage this does to our health, etc. But I was telling them this story because Elsa, one of the cacao producers that we work with, but for this amazing cacao, which is Lanquin, we're actually going to post this on Instagram soon. Hopefully, we're interviewing her to tell this story. But basically, Elsa was just having a conversation with her, and we were talking about, you know, Monsanto and monocultures and pesticides and how bad it is, etc. And in Guatemala, they've been trying to pass all of this horrible Monsanto laws for some time, but we're warriors and we fight against that, so that they haven't succeeded yet. But Elsa told me that some months before they started working with us, an organization came to her house and they pretended to be like a really good organization that was going to help the community. and they told her to sign up for this gift giving that they're going to be doing. So basically, we're going to gift you and your family food and seeds and a bunch of really great things for you to help you because you guys are in a poor community. So we're going to help you. So Elsa was like, yeah, that's super happy. I'm great. Like, let's sign up. That's really great. Like free food, of course, So then basically she came to the place where they were going to be giving out the free stuff. And it was quintales, so 100-pound bags of corn seeds as a gift for planting in your land. And then Elsa opened one of the bags and she was like, oh no. She could see just visually, these are Monsanto seeds. She was like, guys, these are not corn seeds. And then she started warning everybody, like all the people around. She was like, don't take them home, guys. Don't take them home. These are Monsanto seeds. You guys don't know, but if you plant these, you're never going to be able to get any other seeds but this Monsanto seeds, so don't take them home. Basically, she started just like warning everybody. She was really angry. She left, They in Guatemala, they call them improved seeds, And basically, they're not improved, by the way. They are terrible. But basically, they came to her house that same day in the afternoon. Like this was in the morning. In the afternoon, they came to her house, this organization, and started threatening her and telling her that basically she signed up, so she needs to get the seeds. They brought the seeds to her home and they're like, you need to plant the seeds or you're going to get in trouble because you signed up, so you agreed to plant the seeds. So you need to do it or you're going to have big problems with us. And so they were trying to like put fear into her. Basically, she was like, I know better. I'm not going to be afraid because of like your threats. So please leave my house and please never come back and you guys are evil, And so she didn't do it and she was telling me the story and I was like, are you joking? This happens here? Like, the big trucks come with Monsanto seeds and like, pretend to be charity so that people plant those seeds. And then if they don't, they threaten them and manipulate them through fear to do it anyways, So it was really scary to hear that. But then simultaneously, we start to hear about other issues such as like the fact that right now, for example, if you see, we're like sometimes out of stock in the shop with cacaos because due to the climate problems that we're having right now, every year is a worse year for cacao, So every year the cacao harvest goes worse and worse and worse because there are plants that need the cycles of nature that are being obstructed right now in Guatemala. 20 years ago, it always started to rain on the same day. The dry season always started on the same day. You knew almost by the week what the weather is going to be like because of how constant it always is cyclically throughout the years. And now the weather is almost like all over the place. Right now it's not raining. I just come off the phone with Jerico, who says they're predicting big droughts around the world, And so we have a huge issue right here, like in Lanquin, where the cacao comes from, a big mountain is burning and they're not being able to control the fire, the forest fire. Well, you know what I mean? I'm not sure, but yeah. In Antigua where I live, the Agua volcano was burning and we're having like a really hard controlling that fire and a lot of animals were dying because of the biodiversity. It's because of the climate, it's because of the weather, Hector, another person we work with, we had a call with him a few days ago and he basically was telling me like, oh, it's a really bad year for corn. Like if you think cacao is a problem, just wait till you hear about the bad year for corn. He told me like the agriculture of corn, the agricultural system of corn. And he was explaining me how basically we're not sure if we're even going to have enough corn. And if we do, the price of corn is increasing like crazy, obviously, because of the scarcity of corn. And I was like, but why? And he was like, because of the weather. It's just not raining. It's like not the proper weather for corn plantations right now. So Jerico started to explain me, this is something I shared also in the challenge a few times, that my dad was predicting that by the year 2025, we're going to have massive problems with water. He always told me, Solveig, please live near a source of clean water because otherwise, it's going to be very dangerous. And Jerico just on the phone is telling me, just you wait to see how the problems with water are about to start now. And so I feel like every day I'm in the phone with them, with the Mayan spiritual leaders, with the cacao collectives, with all of the different people that we work with. And they're just basically almost like reporting to us, like, all of these horrible things that are happening. This is something we already noticed a few years ago, like, you know, even if it's not affecting all of you yet, and you can still live like a good life, so to speak, for now with this problem, the people it's affecting the most right now, firstly, is the indigenous farmers, you know, because their agriculture is being destroyed first. Okay, I was having a phone call thanks to a beautiful connection that was made with a really great organization the other day they're from Ecuador, but they also live in the States, I guess. And so they support a lot of different indigenous owned businesses or different indigenous led causes and charities and projects and all kinds of things. So we were thinking about just how to collaborate a little because we're doing something kind of similar, you know? And so basically, the representative of this collective and I were talking, and it was like finding a sister because we all understood it. We both understood each other so well. And she was explaining me how their collective is going to all of this like worldwide events. They're in the States, by the way, the NDN collective. So you can Google them probably. Basically, they're based on the States. But anyways, basically we were talking to them and she was telling me how, you know, we're fighting so much for the rights of indigenous people. She was telling me in Ecuador right now we're having this big fight that our collective is supporting, which is against the Canadian miners. And I was like, oh, tell me about Canadian minery, because in Guatemala we're very familiar with the destruction that minery is doing, not only of the earth because of the horrible mining practices, but also because of the violations of human rights that they're doing against the Maya people, especially the Maya Kekchi people in Guatemala, because the Kekchi people live on top of a bunch of valuable minerals and stuff like that. Their land is full of like gold, cobalt, all kinds of things, you know? And so the crimes that they're committing against these people are that there's not even a word about enough to just describe how bad it is. And so I was telling her this story of like, oh, well, right now we're talking about more like with our collective, like about Monsanto and stuff. And she was telling me like, and I was telling her, and you'll see that change happening soon in the Mayan Wisdom Project on our social media. Right now, we're just sharing a lot of education and information, like in all of our platform as the Mayan Wisdom Project. We're sharing just a lot of education on general Mayan topics. Like, you know, we're talking about like a certain set of herbs and telling you the medicinal properties of it, or what's the meaning of equinoxes for the Mayans or solstices, or what's the story of Xibalbá. And that is beautiful because we will keep, of course, always sharing education because that's a big part of our organization. But our mission, we're only 4 years old, and our mission has always been very clear. And right now we're very excited because we're getting closer and closer and closer to being able to making that vision that we've always had come true. It is more to be able to actually, a big part of our organization, what we do is basically, it would be so easy for us. And this, for example, with the cacao, it would be very easy for us to buy a cacao farm, to farm the cacao ourselves, to pay people super badly to make the cacao, and then to make it in machines in a factory that we own. And then we could produce it for a few dollars and still sell it to you guys for 60-something dollars and just tell you it's ceremonial cacao, but that's not who we are. So we don't want to own any part of the production. We basically just look for indigenous, like Maya owned, and for Maya entrepreneurs and Maya owned businesses who make it by hand in the traditional ways. And then I told you guys, you have no idea how much you're changing their lives. Like, for example, this new collective, the woman Elsa that I was mentioning, the Lanquin cacao, like, they just can't produce enough cacao for how much you guys drink. And so they had to hire 4 more women in the last couple of weeks to come and produce cacao. And, you know, we're paying them super, super well for the cacao. So it's like really changing their lives, you know? So that's kind of like the few ways in which we've been able to support the community is by everything we sell in the shop is owned by like indigenous owned businesses, where we pay them really well, oftentimes even more than they originally asked for because they're underselling their work sometimes, and etc. But our mission has always been to collaborate with people who have Maya-led organizations and like indigenous-owned organizations, such as like the Tajerico and the Nana. There's a woman called Nana Panchita. There's a project called, Proyecto Paruts, and there's people who are doing different things, and they're Maya-led organizations. And what we want to do is we want to collaborate with them in projects that they've been working on already for years, but they don't have the money basically to, like, they have the whole structure of the project, the whole vision, the whole idea. Some of these projects are already legally registered and everything. They just can't get to it fully because they just don't have the financing for it. And so with the Mayan Wisdom Project, what we tried to do was take advantage of me, as weird as it may sound, because my dad, luckily, when I was a kid, my parents were obsessed with, you need a good education. You need a good education because education is like the one thing. We were very poor, but they were like, that's the one thing we're going to inherit you. So luckily I got a scholarship to go to an international school, and that's why I speak English, And so basically I was with my husband, we were saying like, well, look, we can't do much, but we can do this because we're good at business. We speak English and we can do what other people can't do usually because they don't have the opportunity. So let's start this project, and then we can just take all of that back into the communities and support those people who don't have the resources or who have the language barriers or the education barriers to be able to actually do the projects that they want to do. So that has always been our goal, and that's what we're starting to work on right now. And we're very honored that we were even invited recently to speak in some really cool conferences about the work that we're doing. And we've never fully shared the backstage in the front, but soon we're going to start sharing it more in the front, because we want to also tell stories of our teachers who are warriors, who are fighting against these big companies. Sometimes we'd even thought about telling the stories. Like, we had a few teachers who were like directly affected by the minery. And then we asked them if we can do something, like share about this and everything. And they were like, well, if you guys want us and you to get killed, then sure, we can share, but you will get killed. So we were like, okay, well, of course, we're not going to ask you to share publicly, but right now we are, and so we're going to start sharing way more publicly about the situation that's happening in Guatemala, but not only talking, because that's what I wanted to share with you guys right now. It's not just it's everybody. We should all just stop talking about the problems that are happening in the world, and we should actually start taking action, because I'm just letting you guys know that we are in an actual emergency right now. Back to the Andean collective that I was talking to, the one of the main persons who's like one of the, I don't know what her position is, actually. I don't want to say it wrong, but like, she has a high position in this collective and in this project, the Andean Collective. And she and I were saying, like, look, she was explaining to me, and we were saying how frustrating it is that their fight, she says, people don't understand why it's important, this fight. She said, like, it's like we're fighting for indigenous rights, And I was explaining, like, I was like, yeah, I know, that's what we're doing right now too. We're fighting for indigenous rights. And she was like, people all over the world are like, well, cool, you're fighting for indigenous rights. That's nice, or whatever people think. But she and I were talking to each other and being like, people just don't understand that we're not just fighting for indigenous rights. All of these collectives, all of these Maya-led collectives, they're not fighting only for their rights. They are literally dying right now because these big companies literally killed them for refusing to leave their land where there's going to be minery done, or for trying to fight against a big corporation. Guys, not only in Guatemala, all over Latin America, they're the only ones brave enough to literally give up their lives in exchange for fighting. They don't care if they're even going to get killed in the fight for this, because the Mayans and all originary traditions have this beautiful perspective in the world. Like, if I have to compare myself to the life of the lake, what's going to matter most, me or the lake? And they always come to the conclusion, well, the lake. If I'm going to have to compare myself to the life of the forest, what's going to matter most? What's more valuable, my life or the life of the forest? And they always come to the conclusion, well, the life of the forest, the life of these animals, I saw a list of animals that are about to go extinct the other day, and I literally cried. I could not believe it. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. So what you don't understand, and this is what I wanted to tell you, is the Maya people, and not just the Maya people, all originary people, when they're fighting for Monsanto, they're not fighting because Monsanto's exploiting them only. They're fighting for you. They're fighting so that you and your kids don't have to eat food that's going to make you sick. They're fighting so that all the massive pieces of land around the whole globe that are like these horrible agricultural practices that have super massive negative impact on the health of the planet, and that's affecting not just them, it's affecting all of us, you know, that stops, so that not only so that it doesn't affect them, but so that it doesn't affect you, so that it doesn't affect your children, you know, so that your children don't have to eat this food that's going to make them super sick, so that you don't have to live in a planet that's about to die. If you read the studies, you will see that wherever there's indigenous people, the biodiversity is so significantly better maintained, that it is just too remarkable how well the biodiversity is maintained in the places where indigenous people live versus the biodiversity in the places where indigenous people don't live. They only account for less than 20% of the population, but they protect 80% of the biodiversity. It might seem like they're losing, and in many ways, it almost feels like they are. But the reality here is we would be years ahead of the problem. Like we would have a way bigger problem right now if it wasn't because of how much they're fighting. So in those ways, they have actually won. And that's what we were talking about with this woman who I spoke to the other day. We were saying people should be way more worried about this, because it's not just about fighting for the human rights of indigenous people, which should be already reason enough to fight, but is because we're fighting for our right to live, you know, for the rights of the water, for the rights of the animals, of the forests, of the jungles, of the earth. And so that's kind of like the scary part of the predictions that we heard right now from all of the spiritual leaders, is that they're getting worse and worse and worse every single year. And we're just very worried about that. So we're gonna just personally start talking way more openly about it and getting even more involved in supporting all of these Maya-led organizations, because something that I was telling Martin too, like it would be hypocritical of us to open our own organization to pretend like we can save them, when as the Mayan Wisdom Project, we're teaching how much wisdom and knowledge they have, you know. Basically, what we're trying to prove here is just give them the resources and just see how they save themselves. And while they're at it, maybe even the world, you know, because that's how great they are with their wisdom and knowledge and saving themselves, saving the world. So I just kind of wanted to say this because I thought if even one person is listening who takes this and also does something similar, that would be already a big win. But there's this famous quote that everybody quotes my dad for all the time, and I've even mentioned it many times, the quote about action. But actually, I've never told you the full story of that quote. Unless you're in the Mayan Wisdom journey, then you can actually probably have heard the story directly from my dad in the video course that he was narrating. But basically, he was explaining how he told the story 100,000 times, honestly. So he was explaining how he was part of the Council of Elders in Guatemala, my dad. The Council of Elders is a group of elders, Mayan spiritual leaders in Guatemala, who sits together and talks about like the problems and tries to take action and everything. And he basically said that one day he was sitting in the Council of Elders and everybody was talking about the problems of the world. And somebody was saying, we have to, you know, the climate is a problem. This is a problem. That's a problem. This is a problem. That's a problem. And this is a problem. And that's a problem. And there was an old man who had come down from very far away, deep in the mountain. He was barefoot and he was a Maya spiritual leader. And he was sitting there in silence the whole time, explained my dad. He was just there in silence, not saying anything throughout the whole meeting of the Council of Elders. And then halfway through the meeting, he just stands up and he says some of the wisest words that my dad probably heard, because he did repeat them 100,000 times in his life. It really marked him. He stands up and he says, okay. You know what? You guys are talking and 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 doing nothing but talking, he said. I'm going to tell you something very important, he said. The spirituality of nowadays has a name, and that name is action, he said. And my dad was like, whoa. And it was such a moving moment, he explained, because basically he was explaining how these words were very impactful because they helped everybody kind of just like realize like, yeah, right, we're just talking and talking and talking. Honestly, whatever, I'm just gonna say something, it doesn't matter, who cares. So we've been like invited sometimes recently to speak in some very large conferences where people go to speak about climate change and the problems of the world and stuff like that. And I was telling Martin, my husband, yesterday, it's worrying to me how easy it is to have a place on world stages where you talk about making an impact in the world. I was like, why are we getting invited? We haven't made an impact yet. You know what I mean? And then I was explaining him in so many of these meetings that we have worldwide to talk about what situation to do. People literally fly in their private jets to those meetings to talk about climate change. Is so ridiculous, you know what I mean? And it is the same thing that this elder said. We're sitting here and we talk and we talk and we talk and we talk and we talk. I mean, sometimes I feel like people might even feel very proud, you know, to just be invited in those meetings because it's really great for their personal brand to be able to say that they've been in those kinds of things and that they're advocates and stuff like that. But the truth here is that there are people who are doing amazing things in the world, but I just feel like if we all also just like united truly and actually we're not afraid to take action, we could achieve so much more. I think that indigenous people deserve a way bigger place in the world stage because they're the only ones who are actually willing to die fighting for the rights of the land, you know what I mean? So maybe we should learn from them what actually taking action looks like. So I guess that was kind of just like the point that I wanted to make today was like, even though the equinox is actually a time for us to take a look at our own, you know, duality, take a look at our own inner stuff that we have to work on. And for the Mayans, it's so important to work on ourselves individually. And at the Mayan Wisdom Project, I feel like we spent the last few years talking so much about like, how do you help yourself? You know, like, how do you heal yourself? How do you face your own Shivalva or something like that? How do you like, you know, like take care of yourself and, you know, heal your relationship with your family or whatever. I think that we're coming to a time in this world where we're also like, there's also a lot of Shivalva but like in the world in general. And so I just wanted to invite everybody in this spring equinox to not just take care of themselves, but to also start taking action. Because I was thinking about it last night and I was thinking, you know what? Who are the people we hold responsible for taking action? They're people too, you know what I mean? Like we are all people, we all have an equal responsibility. The Mayans believe that, you know, it's so easy and so comfortable to say, well, somebody else should do something about it, you know? But the Mayans believe that the purpose of our life and every generation in the ancient Mayan world did such incredible things because they believe the purpose of our life was not personal, but it was a community purpose. It was to have a useful existence, they said. There's no meaning to your life, they said, if your life is not meaningful. There's no point to your life if you're not going to have, they said, a useful existence, if you're not going to leave the world even a tiny bit better than how it was when you came here first, like when you found it. And so I just also wanted to kind of announce that you're going to see the Mayan Wisdom Project soon on Instagram, posting a lot more on some new topics, not just education, but also like what's actually happening in Guatemala. And also like what are the projects that we're going to start working on way more hard on right now, alongside Tata Jerico, alongside Nana Panchita, alongside several people who are like having all of these organizations that are Maya led, where they're trying to save agriculture, basically, where they're trying to save the ancient oral tradition in education, where they're trying to like lift up the benefits of like originary medicine and how can Mayan medicine collaborate even with like modern medicine in order to like not fight with each other, but like truly care for the health of the people. So some incredibly beautiful projects. And I guess I just wanted to say that. That was it. It was just in my mind. And I felt like just weird having phone calls from all of the spiritual leaders telling me about how dangerous the situation of the world is getting, and then having this platform and not taking advantage of it to actually share it. So if you guys are doing something cool for the world or taking action, tell me what it is, and I'll be happy to talk to you guys about it. And let's all take action together, you know, and let's try to see how this equinox is maybe a good time for us to find the balance of the duality between the light and the darkness within ourselves, but also how can we find the balance as a community and as part of the whole world. So that was the message that I had for you guys for today, specifically because even if we wanted to close our eyes to it, it's just, I feel like it's just not just predictions at this point. Like, sure, there are predictions, but I just feel like it's not just predictions at this point. It's actually a reality that we can just see. So I don't know. I'm just very inspired over the last couple of days with that little quote from that really wise person who said, action is the word. You know, I like not talking and talking anymore, but taking action. So if you guys want to take action together, let's do it. And well, also enjoy the cycle of the spring equinox. Enjoy your cup of cacao. Know that it comes from biodiverse agriculture and it supports a farm that is owned by Maya Kikchi people and a collective of people that are Maya Kikchi and producing it in a really great way. But also in addition to that, just go heal yourself and heal the world if you can take action. Okay, lastly, I just wanted to announce a little something important, just for you guys to know. This is actually not in regards to the topic I was talking about anymore, but it is more in general. Just so you guys know, the Mayan Wisdom Journey starts in 6 days from now on March 30th. And there are only 5 spots left, actually. So just letting you know, in case you were interested, that this is basically the last chance to join, and that the discount that I told the people in the challenge the other day is still active. It's a $100 discount. It's Journey 2 is the discount code for $100 off the Mayan Wisdom Journey, but it's only valid for today. And the reason I just wanted to let you guys know is because it starts in 6 days. So I thought if I'm going to do a live event, I'll just let people know. But also, this journey is beautiful because basically everything that I've talked about today and much more, this journey also supports all of these organizations. Actually, the reason we're going to go visit Tata Jerico in a few days is to record even more courses for the Mayan Wisdom Journey. Part of the reason, now I spoke so much about like changing the world and stuff like that, but part of the reason we also started the Mayan Wisdom Project, just so you know, is because we were very tired of seeing how trendy spirituality is becoming. And there's nothing wrong with spirituality spreading. That's actually really great because I feel like we probably need it the most in these times. But part of the reason why we started is because actually, we saw so many people selling Mayan wisdom who had, sorry to say it so clearly, but who had no idea what they were talking about. So many people who just came to Guatemala for 2 weeks, participated in some kind of spiritual ceremony or whatever, and then they took it back home and said, oh, I'm a Mayan wisdom teacher or a Mayan guide or whatever. We also are seeing a worrying amount of numbers, even here in Guatemala, of people who are starting to sell the Arquij title, like trained to be an Arquij in 4 months, in 5 months, in 2 months. And Arquij is a Mayan spiritual leader. Mayan spiritual leaders study for 20 years in the real Mayan communities before they can start doing that. And so we also feel like we have to take advantage of the fact that people are getting so interested. We were speaking about this with Jerico today, that people are getting so interested in learning more. So our mission is to give a platform where there's space for the real Mayan teachers to be the ones who teach, where it's the actual Mayan wisdom keepers who are able to share with their consent and with their knowledge and of how much is okay to share and what is not okay to share, that they share. So that's the Mayan Wisdom Journey. It's a 12-month program, basically guided by all of the spiritual leaders who we work with, and the healers and the teachers and the cacao producers and so many different teachers who basically in 1 year teach all of the Maya tradition and how all of the Maya tradition, as if you could learn it in 1 year, no, a part of the Maya tradition, and also how to use it for yourself, to heal yourself, but also like it's individual development, but also community development. And it's basically an introduction to Mayan wisdom, how to work with the cycles of time in the Maya tradition in your own life so that you can heal yourself, like the Cholquij calendar and others. It is basically how to work with like cacao, but for real, because cacao also became a little too trendy and there's also a lot of misinformation out there. So like how the Mayans actually use cacao and how you should actually use cacao to properly work with it. We also talk about like the pyramid of community development, so agricultural practices, diet practices, how to heal our body through our food, but in the Maya perspective. Then we talk about healing. We talk about like health, like how to physically heal yourself, like what are the Maya practices on how to heal yourself physically, but also emotionally, mentally, spiritually. What are the spiritual practices that human beings are supposed to follow daily? Like philosophy, organization, education. Sorry, my alarm is ringing. And basically, just like so many different things for your self-development. Is also a cohort. So it's like for people to do it in community, because Heriko told us it's super important that you put them in community so they learn how that works in the Maya tradition as well, like how we work together towards our own individual healing. And it's a really beautiful program. Heriko's really excited to record some more content for it right now and to share deeper information about the Maya tradition. So that's more for if you want to learn about Maya tradition or if you want to use the healing practices of the Maya tradition, but if you want to do it in a very safe way where you know that you're going to be safe and what's being shared with you is actually legit information, very life-changing information. So that's the Mayan Wisdom Journey, and I'm just announcing it because it starts again in 6 days, and I just kind of thought you guys might want to know so you don't miss out. But yeah, this was very important to me, and right now, as the Mayan Wisdom Project, this has always been the end goal, just to work and collaborate in these kinds of projects that are also actually going to be very impactful, not only in Guatemala, but hopefully for the earth as well and for other people as well. So beyond just doing education responsibly, we also want to just have a very, very big impact. And I think you're going to start seeing little by little more and more publicly of what we're doing in the backstage, the stuff that we usually don't share, like learning more about the impact that our teachers are having. And lately, I've just been so like desperate to talk more about this and to just really get to it and stuff like that. So I just wanted to create this event and invite you guys to take action, to individually by yourselves, or if there's any way that we could together work, that's also super cool. We're also super open to that, like working together. Basically, it's our responsibility. And the Maya people know that. Every single Maya teacher I know is fighting super hard with their life for this. And it should not just be them. I think it's time for us to also join them in the fight, not just leave it on their shoulders to be literally the only people in the world almost who are actually taking action and doing something. And we should also be very inspired by their action because they have actually really achieved a lot of things. It's just that's not so public or shared because nobody's really talking about their fights, their achievements, and also their losses as well. But that's what we want to do, is just collaborate with other platforms who are, doing the same thing and becoming a platform where we can use the voice, that we have in order to actually create a positive change. So if you see us being more fighters recently, then you're going to know why. And also, again, I just think there's power to community. So I hope you guys can take inspiration from this, take action of your own, and who knows, maybe one day I'll end up working together with one or a few of you directly. So let's see. All right. Thank you guys so much. Happy spring equinox. Go balance your own energy out. Go balance the world out. Go help, take action, take care of the water, take care of the crops, take care of the land. And I will see you guys hopefully very, very soon. Maybe I'll see some of you around in the Mayan Wisdom Journey starting in March, or if not, I'll see you guys somewhere else. I'm sure I'm going to keep seeing you guys in the community and everywhere. So see you guys soon. Thank you so much for joining me today and for hearing my words. And I'll see you soon. Mateus, thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you guys. Bye.